Welcome to the Kas Show with Chris Ryan. I'm your host, Kas Show.
And I'm Chris Ryan.
One thing that we like to do on the show is we don't want to bog you down with what every other sports show is talking about. So we're not going to talk about Trump and how he uninvited the Warriors to the White House, even though most of them said they wouldn't even go if they asked him. And his first immediate action after doing that was inviting the Pittsburgh Penguins
But
for the NHL.
we're not going to talk about it, right?
We're not going to talk about it. Instead, we thought it'd be funny to go through the NFL. A lot of good games happened this week, so we're going to give you one sentence about every game, just something we found interesting.
Starting with the first game on Sunday, Jacksonville, Baltimore.
No one is waking up at 9 a.m. to watch football. New England, Houston.
Belichick refuses to lose to rookies at Gillette. Colts, Browns.
Less people watch this game than the Baltimore game. Bucks, Vikings.
Case Keenum absolutely owns the Bucks. Jets, Dolphins.
I don't want to talk about this one. I said I don't want to talk about it. Eagles, Giants.
That guy can kick. Steelers, Bears.
That guy can't. Atlanta, Detroit.
Detroit won that game. Bengals, Packers.
Rodgers threw his second pick six ever. Panthers, Saints.
Cam threw 3 picks against the worst defense in football. Chiefs, Chargers.
Hunt is like Zeke last year, but like without the attitude problems and the shirt that doesn't go past his belly pulling girls' shirts down. And like pulling girls' shirts down. All right, Oakland, Washington.
The Raiders are frauds. Seahawks, Titans.
Where is Steven Hauschka? Denver, Buffalo.
Stephen Hauschka is on the Bills now. Dallas, Arizona.
Jerry Jones made that Jim face when he looked into the camera.
If you guys didn't know, Jerry Jones locked arms with his team before the anthem, and he took a knee with all of them, and he looked directly into the camera.
Put it on the poll. Does Jerry Jones look like Jim Halpert from The Office?
If you were noticing that we only named 15 games, good for you. You're very aware and smart.
There's absolutely nothing interesting about the 49ers-Rams game, and I refuse to comment on it.
Nothing at all. It was a 2-point game, but it was still Niners-Rams.
And now we have the fantasy update, for which we have a sound for. I couldn't figure out which one I wanted, so I picked them both.
Attaboy.
I'm re-upping on Ben Watson this week. Y'all clearly weren't listening last week because he's still only owned in about 2.9% of ESPN leagues. And yeah, Baltimore looked pretty bad in London, but who did whoever Joe Flacco's replacement look for their garbage time touchdown? Yes, the man, the legend, Ben Watson. Keep it going.
I'm rolling with the very underrated Trevor Siemian. Now, he looked very rough against the Bills, but the Bills have a respectable defense. Trevor Siemian looked great in the first 2 weeks, and who do they play this week? The Oakland Raiders. And if they don't have the worst defense the Saints do, they might have the second worst defense. Trevor Siemian's still available in about 60% of ESPN leagues. The Raiders just looked atrocious on both sides of the ball against Washington. I believe that Denver's a better team than Washington. I'm rolling with Trevor Siemian against the Raiders.
I'm going to go with Tyreek Cohen on Chicago, owned in under 50% of leagues, and he's a guy whose usage rate goes up every week, which is especially good if you're in a PPR league. And if you're looking for someone that can catch and run, I definitely think Cohen's the back for you. And I know you might be thinking, Jordan Howard just went off and he's blowing up and et cetera, et cetera. What else? What's Chicago going to do? What else are they going to do? So I'm definitely very high on Cohen. I think he's a lock against the Packers in their week D this week.
Speaking of the Packers in their week D, stay with me. I'm rolling with Andy Dalton this week. He looked pretty good.
Are you just picking quarterbacks?
I'm just picking quarterbacks. That's who my sleepers are.
Anyone can have a quarterback.
Andy Dalton is still available in over 80% of leagues. Like I said, he showed signs against a below-average Green Bay defense. Cleveland plays the Browns this week. Don't need to really say a whole lot more other than they made Jacoby Brissett look like Joe Montana. Dalton against Browns. Anybody against Browns.
Speaking of that, my streaming D for this week is the Bengals, or hashtag anyone playing Cleveland.
Are you just picking anyone against the Browns now?
Wade's on Cleveland.
Speaking of Cleveland, Dwayne Wade is now a Cleveland Cavalier. Any impact this year?
Yeah, 100%. So Dwayne Wade, if you don't know, at the beginning of last season, Dwayne Wade could have signed with the Heat, and it was a lifelong dream for him to play with Chicago, so he decided to do them dirty after a year of garbage. Dwayne Wade decided not to play with the Miami Heat because Chicago offered him $8 million more. Dwayne Wade was bought out by Chicago this week and lost out on $8 million. You could have not been a backup for Dion Waiters. I don't want you. I'm glad you're in Cleveland.
I don't think Harry really cares about a washed-up Dwayne Wade. Do you guys? Sticking with basketball, Oklahoma City acquired Carmelo Anthony from the Knicks, and now they have 3 of the top 10 usage rate players from last year. I think that they're going to be very exciting and fun to watch. I don't see them even coming close to competing for a championship. I say they win about 50 games max. It's going to take a lot for them to...
I think they win at least 55 games. And I think you have to give a nod to their front office because they traded Victor Oladipo, Doug McDermott, Enes Kanter, and Domantas Sabonis for Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. And if that's not the best front office move, that made Boston, all of their moves look like trash.
Please.
That looked like everything that they've done for the past, since Paul Pierce left, looked like garbage.
They've got great stars, but...
Got rid of Avery Bradley for nothing.
I'll be honest, I don't know how long Carmelo signed for, but Paul George is in Los Angeles next year, no doubt about it.
You don't know that.
Staying with Oklahoma City. We'll talk about it on the next year's podcast.
All right. Finally, Mike Conley had a lot to say about our podcast this week. Mike Conley?
I just want to let you know I admire you. I really like what you do. I hate to see that you're underrated. I mean, just going through all these things, he actually watches me play. That's what I'm thinking in my head. He knows a lot about me.